you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
All right. Welcome. Good morning. And welcome to this program today, the Counter-Racist Code show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. On the line from D.C. is Neely Fuller Jr. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, sir.
Okay. All righty. I have a little problem here. My chat room is not functioning, but maybe they'll work that out there, so therefore I can't read the chats. But anyway, we'll go on from here. It's saying I don't have an internet connection, but I do, but it's not up. So if you're calling and you are trying to get in the chat room, at least for me, I'm not on there. I don't know what's going on with that, but we will work that out. Okay. Good morning again, and this is the Counter-Racist Code show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. To get in contact with the show, you can call 516-453-9921. Be sure to press the number 1 button, and be sure also to give your name to the call screener so that I can properly introduce you. You could also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. And chances are I will not read your particular Gmail today, but at some point in time I will read it and give you the date and the time that your Gmail will be read. Okay, let me see here. So several things to do. Mr. Fuller, Rod Campbell from Phoenix, Arizona, indicated to me and wanted to announce and say, happy birthday, happy 91st birthday to you. Now, I don't know if it's your birthday. I had meant to look up the information, but he wanted to say that. Is it your birthday, or was it your birthday, or what? When is your birthday?
Well, according to the code, the way I use it, the way I express it, it's another one of my birthdays.
Okay.
But according to the calendar, it's date that I was born, October 6th, 1929. That makes me 91 as of today, according to some calendars, historically. But I like to call it another breath day because I'm breathing. I took a breath many years ago, what they call years. That's how you measure time in the Northwestern Hemisphere and many other places of the world, in what they call the Christian calendar or the Gregorian calendar. I guess they have different names for it. But I took my first breath on what they call October 6, 1929, on a Monday, rainy Monday. My care mother told me I had a very difficult time that morning trying to get to the hospital and lots of things going on. She was going into labor, and it was a rainy Monday in Muskogee, Oklahoma. The Muskogee Baptist Hospital on Fond du Lac Street at that time. And that's it. And so I've been here ever since. And so I'm supposed to be using my time to carry out the mission of what I was sent here to do, like everybody else. Everybody has a mission. the way I see it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is put here for some days. You're given breath, and you're given a body that you have breath in when the white supremacist is not trying to squeeze it out of you. Okay, so you go as long as you can along those lines and carry out the mission that you see fit to be carrying out of why you're here in the first place. Now, I'm incorporating all of this just in, you might say, quote unquote, my birthday, because it comes down to what am I here for? I cannot lose focus on that. Why have I been here all of this time? And other people have not been here at this time. Why am I me and not somebody else?
Mm-hmm.
And what am I supposed to be doing with the time and the body and the mind and the breath? This is a breath day, another one, that I am given. So I think that I am doing, I could be in error, I think that I am doing right this minute what I'm supposed to be doing with everything that's been given me, because it's all been a gift. I haven't lost anything.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Also, Wayne Owens Richard, Richard, mentioned something about the crest theory of color and confrontation with racism, white supremacy. Now, if I recall, you used to or have worked with Dr. Welsing when she was alive, but you mentioned, I think, you had different areas of that. Can you just speak to that just for a moment, Tim?
That I have different areas of what?
Different parts of the racism, white supremacy. In other words,
she has written, Dr. Frances Welsing?
Well, yeah, I know you can't speak to what exactly she has written, but you can speak to what you have done. I believe you two were sometimes on the same program, but covering different parts of it.
Oh, yes. Well, she would say whatever she had to say, and she wrote about it, and she has spoken about her theory of color confrontation for years. So, in answer to the question, if I understand the question, the best consultation that a person can get, because Dr. Welsing has dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of recordings. And anyone who is interested in the work of Dr. Welsing, those recordings, if they can find them, I don't know what all the outlets are, but she has 2 books that are still out here on the market. So I understand that she has written it. I'm familiar with the books, not the content of the books, but the existence of the books. Color Confrontation, one of them, and another one called the ISIS Papers.
ISIS Papers, yes.
Yes. So any information that anybody wants about what Dr. Welsing's theories are about color confrontation, they can easily get material, I guess. And on the Internet, I hear people say that she's available on the Internet all over the place. And this, I don't know what the mechanics are for doing that, but I think the information is pretty well available. There are people who are carrying it on, her works, right here in Washington, before the virus, at Howard University, Blackburn Center, and they can give all the information that you would possibly want on Dr. Welsing's work, because you have many people who are carrying on her work and making it known to people who are not familiar with it, and refreshing it for people who are familiar with it. So they would know more about that than I would, because even though I talked to Dr. Welsing, and Dr. Welsing says she got a lot of her inspiration and material from me, how she used the material and how she employed it, I do not know the extent of that, because I have not heard most of Dr. Wilson's speeches when she started going on the speaking circuit.
Yes. She called me here, and she relayed the same, just about the same information that you did. I was trying to have a conversation so that you and her could speak at the same time on a program that you and I had done, but it just didn't work out. It was nice to speak with her. Very, very nice lady. Okay, let's do this. First of all, or second of all, VGQ from Jane Lance. She says, "Happy birthday to you, Mr. Fuller." And then we will go with this Clay from the 323 area. Let's see if I can get you on here. There you go. I think I got you on there. Wait a minute. Okay, brother, how you doing this morning?
Grand. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning. Happy birthday, Neely Fuller. My question for Neely Fuller is, can he give us some advice on how to maintain to live like as long as you have managed to live on this planet, Neely Fuller? And by advice, I mean like, what's your daily diet? What kind of vegetables and fruits do you consume? And just stuff like that, because I'm from South Central, and I live in a food desert, so it's really hard for me to eat healthy. I'm just now beginning this journey, so I would love to hear some advice from you.
Well, the best that I know is just what people say. I have no knowledge. I'm not, a nutritionist, nowhere near that. And my diet for most of my existence was what you call the typical Negro Southern diet, just sopping up a whole lot of grease and gravy with a biscuit and some cornbread. And I found out later on, much too late, that, that wasn't healthy at all. That's slave food. Chitlins, what a lot of black people say, and, and a lot of greasy barbecue. Oh, yeah, it tastes good and all that, maybe. I don't know about the chitlins. I never did like that, but a lot of black people did. But that is what you call slave food. That's what people threw away. They call it eating high on the hog. Well, what you call the quote-unquote slang expression, the poor white folks ate, the hog head and, and the ham and et cetera. Then they'd looking at the chitlins and say, well, I'm not going that far. I'm down to the hog anyway. I can't get first-class steak, so I eat hog because it's cheap. But so we'll just give the chitlins to the slave. Just throw it out the back door out there on the ground. They'll come and pick it up and eat it because, they have to eat anything that we give them. But we're not going to give them much. And these are stories that I heard, and that black people, whatever you do, you learn to like it. That's just the way, all things are. You do enough of anything, smoking cigarettes, taking drugs, you'll learn real quick to like it, if that's all you have. But in answer to the question, I try to, and have for the last 20 years at least, kind of real late, I try to stick to everything that's healthy. Vegetables, beans, broccoli. Now, I've told people down through the years, what do I recommend that people eat? And I have shied away from that because if the word goes out that any black people are eating a particular type of food in the system of white supremacy, the white supremacists will get busy and make an artificial version of it. And you'll be thinking that you're eating real food when you're not. Because they'll do that. They want to keep black people poisoned. So I am very cautious in recommending anything. If I say that all black people should eat broccoli, the white supremacists will take a look at that and say, we don't want any healthy black people in mind or body. We want them to always have health problems. So we will sell them the broccoli, but we'll make sure that the broccoli is poison. That's how they operate. They don't want black people to ever amount to anything ever in the future. They want to keep us the way that we are, unfortunately. And the way that we are is the way no people should be.
Yes.
And black people, another thing, while I'm saying all this, black people should stop bragging about the way that we are. We are nowhere close to the way any people should be that ever existed. Nowhere in the neighborhood here in 2020.
Yeah, I agree entirely.
Okay. All right, well, I thank you so much for your call. And, again, I always say, don't be a stranger, my brother. All right, thank you. All righty. Let's see. I said it again. I'm going to have my technicians check the Internet connection because I'm getting a few notices that we are not broadcasting on the Internet, and I do know that my chat room has not come up, but if you could please, sirs, check that out for me and see what's going on. All right, the number that you call to get into the show is 516-453-9921, and you can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. Mr. Fuller, this is from Anonymous. Miss Anonymous. She says this: Mr. Fuller, why do black men watch pornography videos or buy the magazines, and why are they the main target to buy it?
Oh, because the white supremacists behind all that. If you're talking about sex, the white supremacists made a decision. I don't know when, many centuries ago, that when it comes to sex, they're going to control every bit of a black person's mind. Why? Because sex is extremely powerful. It's a natural motivating force. People have sexual tendencies at a certain age. I mean, the average person begins to have what you call sexual feelings, and they don't understand them right away. That's just the way it works. But they get these feelings, every male, every female. So the white supremacists said, if you can control a person's sexual orientation, their tendencies, their power, if you can get solid control of that through the mind, in other words, it's all in the mind. Your body is stirring, your body has inclinations, but if you get control of the mind, you can control what a person does with their body sexually. So we will have absolute, real strict control over a black person's mind and body when it comes to everything sexual. And we'll send them in every type of direction that we want them to be in, because if we get control of their sexual inclinations, whatever they may be, and keep their minds and their bodies in that direction, in that mode, we can control them in economics, in education, in entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion. We can control their religion through their sexual power. See, we get control. We are the steering mechanism. We are the wheel of the entire car. We are the engine. We got control of the engine, and all the other cars in the railroad. If you railroad analogy, all the other cars follow the engine, and sex is a powerful engine. The white supremacists understand this among all creatures, birds, bees. They sing songs about it and all like that. A lot of songs are about sex. A lot of songs are about what what we call romance that's all about sex. A lot of movies about getting together sexually. So the white supremacists said, hey, we're going to have black people's minds and bodies going in every type of direction you can name. And we will have absolute control over them forever. They will never be able to get out from under us. I mean, they will just be bathing in what we dump on them. And we will control it all. And we will have magazines, we'll have movies, we'll have seminars, we'll have parades on certain days where, everything from Mardi Gras to you might call rainbow. I mean, hey, we'll drag them and we'll have them so dizzy, so sexually crazy that we can control them forever. I mean, with no problem at all. They won't know what hit them, but we will. We have to stay on them, because otherwise they might figure out what we're up to. Okay, so I went a roundabout way of answering the question, but I think I got all of the ingredients in it. Oh yes, why do they put pornography out here? I looked at it. Playboy magazine, Hustler. I looked at all that in the 1960s. In fact, there was a strip club just a few blocks from the White House called This Is It. Huge sign, downtown Washington, D.C. And you could see it way off distance. Big, bright lights, Las Vegas style. This is it. That's what it said on the outside. And so when you're inside, you saw naked people, females, pole dancing and all that. Okay. And what do they mean by, they give it that name. This is it. In other words, you come to Washington, D.C., this is it. This is the place to come. You want to get educated? You want to know what's happening now? You want to know about, what I guess the Constitution is all about. Come to this place, downtown Washington, not far from the White House, just a few blocks from all the monuments where the Constitution is and all like that. But hey, if you really want to get into it, this is it. Come in here and watch these naked females running all around all over the place. And you got it. I mean, your mind is exactly where it should be. And,
yes.
And I guess it's all over television now. You don't see these places anymore.
Yes.
That kind of wore thin. But you can get it on the TV, I understand. The TV is loaded with it.
All righty. Just a word here. Don't forget when you call in to press the number 1 button and give the call screener your name. Just a word here. What I understand from the people that I have that listen to the program, the technician just contacted me and said that they are working on the problem. One of the people that I have listening to the program said that I told the person to go on to Blog Talk Radio, and you can hear Mr. Fuller, so that's good there. He said that on the Produce Justice site, the message displays, quote, unable to load data message or data message, whatever you want to say. But you can get the program by going on Blog Talk Radio, blogtalkradio.com, and you can hear Mr. Fuller. That's for those that are just trying to get in. Chat room is not available right now, so I don't know what the problem is, but my technicians are working on that problem, so just bear in mind here. Let's do this. Let's do this. I'm going to take a little station break, and then I'm going to go to the phone line. You're listening to the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr., and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Now, if you'd like to call into the show, you can do so by calling 516-453-9921. And make sure you press the number 1 button. You will go to the top of the line. And if you would like for me to read your Gmails, because of our situation today, I will have them forward them first up to me by doing this. 7 Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com, and we will go from there. Okay, I think that's it. Yes, that's it. Okay, let's go back to the phone lines, and brother from the 716 from New York, I don't know what your first name is, but let me see if I can get you in here. Ada X. Okay, Xavier, I don't know. You're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead with your question, please. Hello? Yes, okay.
Yep.
How do you pronounce your first name? Because they got Ada X up here.
Just the letter A and the letter X.
Okay.
AX.
All right. Okay, AX. Go ahead with your good morning, and what is your question for Mr. Fuller?
Good morning. Happy birthday, Mr. Fuller. 91st birthday. I wanted to talk about a show that just came out on Showtime on Sunday. It's called The Good Lord Bird. It's about the abolitionist John Brown. He's actually a white man. The first question is have you heard of the white abolitionist John Brown, Mr. Fuller?
Yes. You know.
Okay.
At Harper's Ferry, I don't remember too much about the details, but I'm familiar with the story of John Brown and the rebellion. Osawatomie Brown, they called him. He was first in Kansas. Then he traveled from there to Harper's Ferry, and that's where he was instrumental in the abolitionist movement, quote unquote, as they called it.
So I actually learned about him from Claude Anderson, and Claude Anderson actually said that he's the only white man to ever help black people, and the reason why he said that is because he literally fought and gave his life for what he was doing. Would you agree with that he's one of the only white people who truly helped black people because he literally died for what he was doing? Do you agree with that? Or any white person who actually gives their life for black people? I don't know many besides him, but...
Well, I can't say one way or another, except on the BGQ. That's a part of the code. When any black person makes an assessment about anything, talking about anything, the only thing that I am supposed to say when I'm asked about what that black person said, whatever his or her evaluation of something about race, racism, or counter-racism is, I am required to just make one remark, and that is, well, Mr. Anderson said what he said. I can't agree or disagree. And this is very important in counter-racist science, because if I say that I agree, then there will people who will start taking sides, and people have a tendency to take sides, and then it becomes volatile. And if I say that I disagree, then people will take sides on that. And they'll say, well, Neely Fuller said he didn't agree with Mr. Claude Anderson. Or Neely Fuller said he agreed with Mr. Claude Anderson. But I don't agree with Neely Fuller or Mr. Claude Anderson. And so the white supremacists, I found out a long time ago, they exploit when black people start talking about what they agree with or what they don't agree with about what some other black person has done or said. You have to be real careful about that. I discovered that many years ago. So I came up with a codified response called VGQ, which means Victims Guaranteed Qualification. If Mr. Claude Anderson says that that's the facts, that's the truth, I say, well, that's what Dr. Claude Anderson said. He said what he said. If the case is of a black female, non-white, I'll say, well, she said what she said. And I'm not supposed to say anything else. You can look at what the person said and evaluate it for yourself. But I am not supposed to pass judgment on anything that a non-white person says about race, racism, and or counter-racism. That is strict codified law. I can't deviate from that.
I understand, but as far as John Brown being a white person who helped black people and he lost his life, is there anything that you would say about that? I mean, was he like, how would you classify him? As a good white person, or, that's what I said, but how would you classify somebody like John Brown, who tried his best to help black people?
Well, I just look at it as an event. Maybe there were millions, and still are, of white people who are very sincere about helping black people and doing the best that they can in the circumstances that they are under. But we're still under the system of white supremacy. So what does the code say about that? That's what I follow. The code says it ain't over till it's over. That you don't get paid for mileage if you're white. You don't get paid for yardage. It's not like football. It's only over when it's over. So that's the codified, that's the rock-solid codified counter-racist position, according to what I have written. You don't get credit for effort. You only get credit for when the lights out in the stadium and the game is over. And it's all wrapped up. It's a wrap. 50-yard line, 99-yard line, that won't cut it. That's like you haven't done anything at all.
All right. Brother AX, thank you for your call, and don't be a stranger, my brother. Okay, let's see here. Let's go to the 717 area code. I believe that's Darnell, and let's see here. Darnell, you're up, and you're on with Mr. Fuller. Good morning, and what is your question?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Neely Fuller, and happy Earth Day to you. My question is just the benefit of the full war method of resisting racism, white supremacy, as opposed to the open air concept. I want to know the benefits of the open air compared to the full war method. Thank you.
Oh, the benefits of the open air method is it's open air, meaning, see, the white supremacists love for black people to say, well, we're going to organize. So what do you mean by organize? Organize. Well, we need to have organizations. Well, what do you mean by organizations? See, these words are supposed to mean something. Say, well, we need to get together. Okay, get together and what? Get together and organize. And we have a tendency to talk like that. We talk in a circle. And so finally, when it comes down to it, I mean, after talking exhaustively, we usually say that, well, we need more organizations that will fight for black people's rights. And so, well, somebody will say, well, starting with doing what? And that's the first breakout. So then they say that, well, we'll have a person who will take charge and say, wait a minute, you're going to have a person who's going to take charge. Yeah, we need a leader. We need a leader. That's what we need. When we're going to get organized, organizations have to have a leader. Okay, so you're going to have a leader in the organization. And so they get a leader, and we have many people who say that they are leaders of black people. Okay, so then leaders have followers, and then you begin to join. Now, see, this is what you call the four-wall concept. So when they all get together, then they say, well, we got to have a meeting place. We're going to be organized so that we can have regular meetings. So like in the code book, it says you have regular meetings in a place. See, so now this is the first problem that you run into with the four-wall concept. You're in a system of white supremacy, which is like being in a prison. So you're going to have a place in the prison. So the white supremacists will allow you to have a place, to have meetings. But then you will spend a whole lot of time trying to do what? Maintain the place. They already know that. See, the white supremacists have what you call a monetary system. So they'll say, oh, you black people want to have a place, 4 walls and a roof? That's what you call the 4-wall system. Okay, that you can meet. Oh, yeah, it's wintertime. You don't want to be on the outside, open air. Okay, so you got to have a place to meet. So you meet at this place. Okay, now, this place I own. Because being prisoners of war, black people don't own anything, nowhere on the planet Earth. No black person owns anything because no black person owns himself or herself. We're all subject to the system of white supremacy, and that's either true or false. Okay? So anything that we say that we own, we have to get some papers proving that we are owning it. And that paper has to have a white signature on it. Otherwise, you don't own nothing. You don't own what they say you own, which means you really don't own it. Because they can take it away from you anytime they get ready. That's what white supremacy means. So that's the difference between the 4-wall system and the open-air system. You have to have 4 walls, an organization. When people say we are organized, that's usually we got a headquarters and all that. And we got a central place where we meet. Well, see, they will watch everybody that goes in and out of that place. So the white supremacists are set up to destroy any organization that black people ever form. That's something we're going to have to really learn, and we should have learned it right from the beginning. We should have been able to see all through that because you spend all your time just trying to keep the organization together, not to say anything about getting anything done. That's why nothing ever gets done. Fundraisers and all that. Well, we got to pay the light bill. We got to pay the gas bill. Got to pay the electric bill. Or they're going to rezone us, and we're going to have to move again. And so it just becomes building maintenance. And the people are just flocking around, and what we call being organized is that we get into a place in 4 walls, and we look around and say we had a good turnout. Well, it depends on what do you call a good turnout. Say, well, it's a huge place. That place is as big as a Coliseum. And so there was a lot of people there. So that's what we call being organized. Lots of people were there. Yeah. You know, when we started out, we didn't have but 500 people. Now we got, 500,000 in our organization. And, and we meet. And we have conventions, and we have this and that, and the white supremacists love it because we spend all our time just traveling and making speeches about what we are going to do when we get around to it. And we never get around to doing very much of anything except just collecting money and having conventions and gathering and high-fiving and even have, some have a little music playing, and that's what we call being organized. But as far as mission is concerned, no effect at all on the general population, on getting anything done. Now, the open air system is you follow a code. You don't follow a person ever. No person. You follow a code. Now, what is a code? Getting things done that always work. That's all a code is. That's all a code is good for. Every time you do it, it works. So it's constructive activity on the part of whom? On the part of every black person on the planet. The white supremacists cannot control that. That's the difference between the open air and the four wall. We have been wedded to the four wall concept. Now, four walls are a good lift-off place, like a launching pad. You know, a rocket going into space, it has to have a place to lift off, all right? But you can't be wedded to that place. You can't call that a holy site. This is holy ground. I mean, you know, this building. I mean, you know, you go in this building and everything is all right when you go through these doors. I mean, nothing can touch you. And the white supremacists, they like that type of thinking because now you're boxed in. But you think that you're running something. You're not running anything. You just walk into a building and you have assumed that you're in a sacred place because that's where you've gotten used to coming to when you want to feel good about a bad situation. That's four-wallism. That's what it's in the code book that you can get by producejustice.com. Four-wallism. Open-airism is about having a code, and that code, you give it to each person. That makes each person an organization within him or herself. And the racists, the white supremacists, they cannot defeat that. Why? Because they're going to have to gather up every person if they call themselves going to squash it. But they announce all the time they're going to put an organization out of business. And the organization spends a whole lot of time and money all tied up in court or something trying to save the organization. But as far as helping black people out here who are in the food line and all like that, they ain't got no money left over for that. And never will have enough money to feed all the black people and whatnot. But if each black person figures out a way to follow a code and feed him or herself, the code cannot, the racist man and racist woman, there's no way that they can defeat that without killing all the black people. That's why the counter-racist code is about going the open-air route rather than the four-wall route. Every black person becomes his or her own leader. Now, that's scary to us, but that's the way we need to go.
Yes, sir. Okay, let's do this. The producers and the technicians have indicated to me that the website at producejustice.com is now up and running. However, the chat room is still having issues. So right now, they're working on it. And if it comes up during the program, then I will acknowledge that. But you can get the show now by going to producejustice.com and also on blogtalkradio.com. Let's do this one here. This is from Victor Palmer from up in Canada. He says this, Mr. Fuller. He said a caller named Miriam called the Produce Justice show on May the 12th, 2020. Then he goes on to indicate Miriam asked a question referring to page 168 on the third paragraph in the code book. Her question was, are non-white people insane? Your response was, Mr. Fuller, yes. Why? Because we are in a system of white supremacy. How are we supposed to come out of our insanity? Your answer, Mr. Fuller, was to replace the system of white supremacy with a system of justice. Then is it logical for insane people to bring about a system of justice? Your answer is by the process of questions and answers. My question, Mr. Fuller, continuing from the third question Marion left off while she was on the show, please give me an example of a question or questions that I can ask, then who would the correct person be to ask these questions? And that would lead me to a non-white person out of my insanity? This is out of balance thinking. I don't think you answered Miriam's question, Mr. Fuller. As I was listening, I didn't understand your answers.
Well, maybe I didn't understand the question, which happens often. But I will try to answer the question if I understand this question, which I don't have really a full grasp of. It seems like the question that I'm being asked now is kind of convoluted. But I have said repeatedly, based on logic, because that's what I try to follow. That's the only thing to follow, really, logic that came with the universe, by whatever created the universe. Put logic in it. Logic is cause and effect. So if you're in an insane situation, in which case black people are in an insane situation and have been driven insane, what's the cure for insanity? Information. So how do you get information? Ask questions and get correct answers to questions. That's the key. That drives a person who is insane into sanity, or it keeps a person who is not insane from becoming insane. Questions and answers. You're insane when you have a question that needs answering and you don't have an answer to that question. Now you are crazy. And that's just the way it works. It's not looked at that way. I think many psychiatrists would say, wait a minute, that's bizarre. I mean, where did that definition come from in insanity? I wasn't taught that in any school or anything like that, but there's something in the universe that says that's got to be the case. You don't have the answers to questions that need answering. You are insane. So the whole world is insane, all right, because there are many questions that need answering. How do you best you feed the multitudes and guarantee that they are fed? Everybody who's hungry, everybody who needs help gets it. But you can evolve a system, you can build a system that's not insane. A system of justice, theoretically, would not be an insane system. But you have insane systems. All of them are insane. Subsystems, but the main system is the system of white supremacy, if I'm answering the question correctly. But how do you cure that? You have to get rid of the system and come up with a system of justice, which is a sane system, meaning guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. That's the definition, the compensatory definition for justice. So you replace the system of white supremacy, which is an insane system that has driven everybody insane, white people and non-white people, and kept it that way for as long as that system has been in place, and it's going to remain that way as long as the system of white supremacy is in place. We're all going to be just as crazy as we can be because it's a crazy system. Why is it crazy? Because it's based on mistreating people. And that's insanity. Mistreating people based on what? Color. But regardless of what it's based on, any type of mistreatment is insanity by definition. You mistreat somebody, you're crazy. And you're driving the person who is being mistreated. If they are having to put up with the mistreatment and try to figure out ways to stop the mistreatment and can't figure it out, now they are crazy. So the whole world is crazy. And Neely Fuller's not the only person that says that. That's one of the first things you learn when you go to the average church. That the whole world, they'll say it in different ways, but they'll say the world is messed up. Almost every preacher will say that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be no point in me standing up here preaching if the world wasn't messed up. It's all messed up. There ain't nothing working that's right. Okay? And then they give their ideas about the remedy for it. Well, it's my duty to put forth what I can, if I see fit to do so, and I have seen fit to do so, to point out that one major remedy is you better get rid of the system of white supremacy, or anything that you try to come up with ain't going to work, because it's not going to be constructive, because you're not in a constructive system. Get rid of the system and replace it with a system that will produce a sane world. But you can't do it in a system of white supremacy. It's just simply not going to happen.
All right. Mr. Fuller, at this particular time, we need to discuss what we've been talking about in your book. So take it away, Mr. Fuller.
Yes, all the things that I'm talking about, some ideas along the areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And for victims of white supremacy, which is what the book was written for, because if you're a person with color in your skin, the book says that you are directly and indirectly subjugated to the system of white supremacy. Now, many people say, well, no, I got color in my skin, but no white supremacist telling me what to do ever. Never will. I'm my own person. Well, then the book is not for you. But the person who says, oh, yes, I'm being abused, I am subject to white people who believe in mistreating me based on color. I feel it. I experience it. I'm under it. And I don't like it. And I want to do something about it. Well, that's what the book is written for. The person who sees him or herself in that kind of condition. That's why I wrote it, because I see myself in that kind of condition. I'm completely subject to the system of white supremacy. That is, I'm not talking about all white people, but I'm talking about the white people who believe in mistreating people based on color. I am completely subject to them. I'm not, equal to anybody who is white, as far as my experiences are concerned. I am subordinate because of my color. I'm in a caste system. I am not a member of the royal family, which the first order of business in the system of white supremacy is to be that, to be white. That makes you royal. So I wasn't born into that category. So the book is written to do away with that entire system and replace it with a better system, which would be not black supremacy. I mean, and black people acting the way that we do now. That's no improvement. That's going from terrible to worse, okay, because they have made us some people that are completely worthless. We're scrap people the way we are right now here in 2020, if we tell the truth. We are no examples for anybody, but we should be, and we can become that. But you've got to get rid of the system of white supremacy in order to do it. And the book is designed to do that. You can get it by going producejustice.com. Producejustice.com.
Okay. Let's do this here. See, Darnell from the 330, Darnell again from the 717. We got Studi coming up, Mark coming up, and a special hello to Sylvia, who is just listening. Okay. Keep in mind that the chat room, our technicians are still working on it. Not available at on this particular show. I don't know if we will get it running, but it is down. So you'll have to call in, and you can call in this number, 516-453-9921. You can also listen to the show at producejustice.com, which is what we would like for you to do. and also on blogtalkradio.com. You can do that. I think that's what I have to do here. Okay, let's go to Studi. See if I can get you up here. Wow. There we go. Okay, Studi, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Good morning, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller. Can I be heard?
Yes, go ahead.
So recently I came upon a documentary that was talking about euthanasia, formerly known as assisted suicide. This procedure is usually prescribed to people who are terminally ill, people who are in great bodily and physical pain that cannot be cured or in a coma. And I know the 9th area of the compensatory code does talk about causing death. And I know Mr. Floyd doesn't usually want to talk about that, but I just wanted to know, so if somebody who is in a situation like that where they're no longer enjoying life because of the pain that they have or because of a disease that cannot be cured to the point where they wish to no longer be alive, to have that procedure done to them, should this be granted to this person suffering who was asking for it, or what is the position of the compensatory code in regards to such a situation?
Mr. Fuller?
Well, that's I hear again, it's another situation where I don't really understand the question, but if you're talking about the 9th area of activity, I just kind of use a paraphrase here. It is what it is. You just follow whatever it says in there. That's under the war section. And I usually don't talk about anything in the 9th area of activity of the book as listed on the air, because it can get real involved and real misunderstood so easily, because you're talking about death and death-making, including one's own death under certain circumstances, counter-racist circumstances. That's what it's really all about, that whole 9th area. And it's about something called maximum emergency. Now, I don't know if you're talking about that or not.
I'm going to have him rephrase the question, Mr. Fuller. I don't think he was talking about it in that particular context. Studi, you mentioned about euthanasia or a person taking his own life or something like that. Could you explain that or ask it so Mr. Fuller can address your question?
Yes. So euthanasia, formerly also known as assisted suicide, is this medical procedure usually prescribed to people who are terminally ill. That means they have maybe a disease that don't have a cure, or they have bodily or physical pain that cannot be relieved, or simply people who are in a coma. And for people who are still obviously alive, sometimes they choose that option so they're no longer suffering. And I know the book talks about putting people in any form of suffering. So if they choose to take that route as to no longer suffer, should this procedure be granted to the person who's asking for it?
Oh, I can't make that call. The code will not allow me to do that, because that gets into a religious matter too. And different people have different religions. And so according to the code, which is supposed to address everything, it does address that simply by saying people should act according to whatever their beliefs are. And many of these beliefs are connected with some type of formalized religion. So whatever your religion says, you follow your religion. You never turn loose to your religion unless you're turning loose to your religion deliberately and getting another one. Okay? But whatever your religion prescribes, you're supposed to be following the laws of that religion. Otherwise, you can't really honestly and truthfully claim that you have that religion. So that sounds like that gets into the religious matter, and one way or another, of whatever religion is, or whatever your belief system is, which would be your religion. Whatever you think is best to do. So that's a call for the individual person to make. Some people make arrangements for that long before. And so that should be taken care of according to what they say. The person should have that type of power according to the code. That's what the United Independent, the compensatory system is about. United Independent. You're independent. You're united with other people and your comings and goings, but you have a certain individuality. That's what you call, quote unquote, independent. All people are dependent on other people. So even when you get ready to die, you're dependent on other people to assist you in not dying or in dying. So some people elect in advance, but only if the people say so in advance. Otherwise, you go according to your religion as to what you're going to do. But if a person is approaching death, everybody should have some type of prescription. That's why they make wills and whatnot. Hey, in case I am disabled and it doesn't seem like I can be revived, I mean, don't keep me all wired up forever like a zombie or something that will never be revived. I mean, I'll just be breathing, but I won't be functional. No, let me go. Pull the plug, they say. Now, some people put this in their wills, and everybody should have a will. Everybody. While I'm thinking about it, I want to really say that. There's lots of people that I know and know of passed away without a will. Put down what you want done. Don't leave people what? Confused. When you don't tell people what you want done, the people are confused. And most people's so-called estate is a complete mess. On account of they keep avoiding what they know is going to happen. And black people, above all, should stop being that way. Keep avoiding what you know is going to happen. We're that way about not only death, we're that way about a lot of things. And that's why we're considered to be people who are dumb and stupid. Because we should prepare for something, but we don't have a history of being prepared for anything in the system of white supremacy. But that's one we can break out of. Make a will. If you don't have one right now, get out there and make it today.
All right.
Make it right this minute if you can. What you want
All right,
done.
Studi, thank you for your call. Don't be a stranger. That concludes the first hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Stay tuned for the second hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show that will begin in 5 seconds. All righty, good morning, and welcome to the second hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. To get in contact with the show, you can call 516-453-9921. Be sure to press the number 1 button, and you will go to the top of the line, and we'll get you in. You can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. We are having some technical difficulties in our chat room forum. It is not available as of now, but if it does become available for this show, we will certainly do that. But the phone lines are now open, and you can call. They are jammed, so it may take you a while to get on there. By the way, when you do call the number, make sure that you give the call screener your name so that I can properly introduce you. And if you have already called once, you are, I hate to tell you this, but you're going to be at the bottom because we're trying to get as many people in as we possibly can. So just keep that in mind as you are on there. I'll get to you if I can get to you. But if not, then I just can't do it. So make sure you do that. Please, again, make sure you give your name so we can do that. Okay, let's go right here to Canada. Mark from Canada, you are now on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Well, thanks again for taking my call.
Mark, I can't hear you. Hello?
You hear me?
Okay, yeah, go ahead, please, sir.
Yes. My question to Mr. Fuller is, how easy is it for us to destroy the system of white supremacy when we are almost exactly like these white supremacists? We live in a culture where we serve the same God, we eat the same food, they make all our dreams and desires come true. So how much of a hindrance is that when we are prescribing to that? So
you start using your mind to make a distinction between what is constructive and what is non-constructive. It's just that simple. There's no such thing as in between. Every move, everything that a person says and does is going to have a constructive effect or a non-constructive effect. That's all you have to do. Just latch on to what's constructive. What you learn from experience and from observation, the things, all of your comings and goings and the comings and goings of other people, just watch and see what the results are going to be. Because the results are going to be either constructive or non-constructive in every area of activity. Economics, you're going to do something constructive or non-constructive. Education, your education is either going to be constructive, meaning you learn how to do something that's going to have a constructive effect or a non-constructive effect. If you're involved in entertainment, the third area of activity, just looking at a movie, you walk out of the movie house and you say, did I learn anything that I can use for a constructive purpose? Ask yourself that. Because looking at that movie is supposed to teach you something that's going to have a constructive effect on your existence or a non-constructive effect. Otherwise, why go in the movie house anyway and look at a movie? Why do that? You're supposed to come out of there with something. And so what is it that you come out of with when you walk out after the popcorn and looking at the screen and all that? So you say, now, I saw this movie. It was 2 hours long. Where is my mind right now that's different from what it was when I saw that movie? And that's the procedure. You ask, I think, if I understand your question, how do you break out of it? By dividing everything into constructive activity and non-constructive activity, including just the way you talk to people and the way that they talk to you. Constructive, non-constructive. Mm-hmm. That's why I said on this program, you make a code. And part of the code should be you never argue. That's constructive.
Yes, sir.
How do you avoid an argument? You avoid an argument by simply staying in the question lane, okay? And not stay away from statements. Once you start making statements, black people black people have a resistance to anybody trying to tell them anything, which is understandable because, that's how we became slaves, people telling us stuff. So we have a built-in resistance toward anybody. But when you ask us things, that's telling us that you think that we might know something. And we kind of like that. So, see, when you ask a person a question, you are telling that person, sir, ma'am, I think you might have the answers to some questions. Well, that's telling that person, that's telling the person that you are asking that of, when you ask them a question, hey, I might be smart, all right? Or I can get smart by you asking me a question. I might come up with an answer. And when I come up with answers, I'm somebody, okay? So people don't get offended by a question more than they do by somebody making a statement to them. Okay, we resist statements. So try to stay in the question lane when you're talking to people. That's just one of the things. But we need an overall code about what to do in every circumstance. That's the key. And how do you divide it up? Constructive, non-constructive.
Okay. Yes. Mr. Fuller, all the books are in, by the way. But for the sake of those who are just new to the program and don't really understand what you are talking about and the questions that come up, I'm looking in the original textbook and workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism and white supremacy. At the bottom of the page, a statement that you make just about on every program. You've made it continuously, but for those who do not know, it's also in the revised, expanded edition, even in bolder and bigger print. Could you read that statement again for those who don't know and for those who have heard it? But it's very important. You always make this statement that you penned in 1971.
Yes, sir. I'll do that because that's the opening statement. That's the foundation for everything that's said in the textbook and in all the programs I'm on. If you do not understand white supremacy, racism, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you understand will only fuse you. I'm going to say it again. If you do not understand white supremacy, racism, because white supremacy is racism, what it is, you got to understand what it is, and how it works. Everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Why? Why do I say that? Based on logic. Because that's the most powerful government on the planet. The most powerful government, worthy of the term government, on the planet Earth, among the people of the planet Earth. Those white people who believe in mistreating people based on color are the most powerful people in recorded history on planet Earth here in the year 2020. And if you don't understand how they operate, how they go about doing things in all 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, if you don't understand they do and why they do it and how they do it in all of those 9 areas of activity, you are going to be a confused person in every move that you make. And you're going to get angry, you're going to be dissatisfied, you're going to be unhappy, you're going to wonder why it is that relationships don't work, you're going to wonder why it is that you don't never have enough money, you're going to wonder about everything. And when you're wondering about everything, you get angry. And then you just start, you actually are, like I said, when you're wondering, when you don't have the answer to questions, you get crazier and crazier. And black people have been made to be, the poster people for insanity. I mean, you can look at us just walking down the street. Look at what we value. Look at the way we interact. We've gotten so used to it, we think that it's, quote, unquote, normal. Well, we're just as crazy as we can be, all of us, including Neely Fuller, sitting up here talking about craziness. He's crazy. There's no way to be in the system of white supremacy and not be completely insane. There's no way to do that. That's impossible. But you say, I'm not insane. What are you talking about? Well, insane people never know that they're insane. If you start knowing that you're insane, now you're getting sane. That's just the way it works. That's the logic.
Sir.
But, I'm glad, I'm pleased that you called that out to go back to the fundamentals about that confusion.
Sir.
The white supremacists made the whole world confused.
Yes. Okay, let's do this. Let's go to the 303 and Darnell from Phoenix. I think we got you. Okay, yes, Darnell from Phoenix. Go ahead, please, sir.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr.
Good morning.
Fuller. And happy birthday to you, Mr. Fuller.
Well, thank you.
My question is in regards to the Constitution. The Constitution seems like it was created for black people as far as a set of guidelines for us to function within. So my question is, according to the code, does the Constitution exist for white supremacy, or does white supremacy create their own rules, or both?
Well, everything that a white supremacist does is to make the system of white supremacy stronger. But it also says in the textbook, the Counter-Racist Code, what I've written, that the seeds of the destruction of the system of white supremacy is built right into the system itself. Like the antidote to a poison, and the system of white supremacy is a poison. But when you have an antidote to a poison, from what I've been told, a part of the antidote contains some of the poison. You build up immunity to it, and then you overcome it and eradicate it. So you can actually use what the white supremacists, because you don't have anything else as a prisoner of war. You just have what's available in the prison. You actually use the white supremacist strength against them. The people who understand what they call judo or jiu-jitsu or martial arts may understand that principle, that you use your opponent's strength against them. Because if there is a poison, the antidote to the poison is going to contain some of the poison itself. So you turn the poison on itself, so that the poison that is put out is the poison that comes back. That's the law of compensation. The system of white supremacy is a poison. They put it out there. It's completely alien to the system of justice. So the system of justice turns that poison back on itself. That's the theory. I believe it works. And so they have a racist code. The antidote to a racist code is a counter-racist code. But you use some of the same elements, because you don't use anything else, because you don't have anything else. You use the same elements, like a knife. A knife can be used to slice a watermelon, or an onion, or a potato. And that same knife can be used to cut a throat. Same knife. The knife didn't change. The use of the knife did.
Okay.
Makes sense to me. Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm going to try to follow this order right here. Thank you, Sylvia, for listening. Let's see here. The way I'm going to try to fix this is, oh, by the way, Reggie Briscoe, yes, the chat room is not functioning right now. I have no proof of this, but it could be that the usual suspects are in play. Mr. Fuller and I have done shows on a different platform, and we've run into issues like this, and so we don't know. But our technicians are working on the problem, and if they get it solved, they will let me know, and I will relay the information to you. But right now, you can call in, but you can't use the chat room, and if they get it fixed, then again, they will let me know. Gregory, you just in from Palm Beach. You're going to be number 5 in this rotation that I have here, so just hang in there. I'll try to get to as many of the calls that I can. Okay, let me see here if I can get it up here. Okay, there we go. Everett, you are now on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, Everett.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr.
Good morning.
Fuller.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, the code got me thinking a whole lot. I know I haven't called in. Just trying to think a lot. That's what the code requires me to do. My question is, the Pledge of Allegiance flag, how it goes. Towards the end, it does says to liberty and justice for all. And I'm thinking to myself, well, it says justice to all, but justice hasn't been produced all the way. So my question is, Mr. Fuller, the word justice has been stated years and years ago, but why is it not produced if it's in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Why is justice not produced if it's in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, because it says to justice for all in the Pledge of Allegiance, but it's not produced.
No, justice has never been produced in recorded history. So whomever wrote that, I didn't write it. I didn't write the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag that we, that is popularly known, where you say, and justice for all. I didn't write that. So whomever wrote it is supposed to explain it. See, that's the code requirement. Whomever says something should explain what they said. Now, the person who wrote that, I guess, is not around anymore. See, so the Pledge of Allegiance. What the code has is a Pledge of Allegiance to any flag. It's in the code book. And I'll tell you what it is right now. It's very simple. I do at all times relate to the flag the exact same way that the flag relates to me. That's it. And you can say that to any flag and it will fit. That's what you call the universal pledge. I mean, any flag that anybody points out to you that you got to pledge allegiance to or they ask you to, well, it minimizes conflict and it eliminates controversy. Because you just simply say, well, hey, you want me to pledge allegiance to a flag? I don't have no problem with that, And say, well, you haven't even seen the flag. I don't care what kind of flag it is. I mean, I don't need to see it. I can take the pledge right here without even looking at it. You want me to? And if they say yes, you'll take it right out of the code book because it's in the code book that I wrote. It's one I made up. I call it the Universal Pledge. It'll fit anywhere at any time under any condition, and nobody should get angry because it's the truth, for one thing. I do at all times relate to the flag the exact same way that the flag relates to me, unquote. Now, you can try it. I use it. I don't have any problem pledging allegiance to anybody's flag. I don't care, a Ku Klux Klan flag, whatever. If you ask me to make a pledge to it, I'll pledge to it in a heartbeat. But I don't even have to think about it because it's codified. See, that's another thing about having something codified. You don't have to do your thinking because you did all your thinking before you put it in a code. And it's supposed to always work. Now, I don't think that there'll ever be a universal pledge that's superior to that one. And if it is, I'll adopt it, because that's what the code requires me to do. Always take the best thing, the best pledge. But when somebody says that the flag represents justice, I can't explain none of that because I didn't write it. But nothing about it makes sense to me. You know, justice represents justice.
Okay.
According to logic.
According to logic.
But you can, but just for to tell you what to do, you can just say, hey, I'm going to take the universal pledge, sir, ma'am, if you don't mind. And they might say, well, what are you talking about, universal pledge? And you just say, well, I'll give it to you. I do at all times relate to the flag the exact same way that the flag relates to me. And that's it. Now, let somebody try to get angry about that. And it ain't going to work for them, I'll guarantee it.
All right. Thank you, Everett, for your call. Don't be a stranger. To all the listeners, and Wendell, I'm going to get to you in just one moment. I was just told by our technicians that the chat room is open, but I can't see your chat, so I'm not ignoring you. I just can't see them. They're not on my screen, so maybe it's something on this end. But the chat room is now open, but I cannot read or I cannot see, so therefore I cannot read whatever you're saying, but the technicians told me that it is there. So sorry about that. These are problems that come up when you do live radio, which is one of the reasons why Mr. Fuller and I do not rehearse this show. We don't go over anything. We just let it go as it is with the mistakes and all. And boy, do I make some mistakes. Woo-hoo. But that's just the way that it is. But anyway, that is the situation as we speak right now, as I try to get some people on the line here. Pardon me. There we go. Okay. Let's do this. You're listening to the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Now, to get in contact with the show, call 516-453-9921 or 7 Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com, and I will try to read your Gmails. I doubt if I can today, but I'll try to read your Gmails. But the main number today is 516-453-9921 to be heard. And the next person to be heard is Wendell from the 803 in South Carolina. See if I can get you on the screen here. Wendell?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, good. I was pressing the button and nothing wasn't happening. Go ahead, my brother. Thank you for waiting, and you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Okay. My question is, and I'm paraphrasing, I heard Mr. Fuller on, he said something to the likes, and like I said, I'm paraphrasing where he said, always choose a non-white partner if you're non-white. Because if you don't, basically, you're being further victimized, and that's an absolute. And my question would be, how is that non-white person further being victimized, and how is it an absolute?
Oh, it's because we're under the system of white supremacy. If we weren't under the system of white supremacy, it would just be boy meets girl. But as a prisoner of war, a black person having, if you're talking about the area of sex, a black person having sexual intercourse with a white person victimizes that black person. The non-white person is a victim with this war going on. We're in a war, and the black people are in captivity. That has never ended. We're still prisoners of war. We're still slaves. Slaves to whom? We're not plantation slaves unless you own a plantation. But slavery wasn't limited to a plantation. Slavery is being subject to the system of white supremacy in any area of activity, one or more. Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. So, if a prisoner of war, which is what black people are on the entire planet, has sexual intercourse with a white person in the system of white supremacy, it means that the white person is engaging in child abuse, because prisoners of war are reduced to a childlike status. Any prisoner of war, any prisoner of anything, anytime you're a prisoner, you're in a childlike, you're put in a childlike position deliberately. That's why you're a prisoner. That's why someone makes you a prisoner. They take you back to being a child if you ever were a grown person, as they say. You become a child when you become a prisoner, because now you're completely dependent on what? On the prison masters. So when a prison master, male or female, a person who is not in prison, a person who is a prison master, has sexual intercourse with a prisoner, that's child abuse. So black people who have sexual intercourse with white people in the system of white supremacy, that black person becomes, by that act, a victim of child abuse. Now, you're already being abused as being a victim of an illegitimate system, which is the system of white supremacy. That's an illegitimate system of government. Now you're being further abused. You're an abused prisoner, which means now you are a victim of a major war crime as a prisoner of war, because you're not supposed to be sexually used like that. The non-white person is being used and abused, whether he or she volunteers for it or enjoys it or not. That's beside the point. It's your status.
How so? How so?
You are abused because you're in a category. That category is prisoner of war. Any prison master that goes into the prison cell and has sexual intercourse with the prisoner and then walks out of that cell and locks the door behind him or her, that prisoner has been abused. That's universal law, if not a law that's on the books somewhere. The person
and you're
is
saying
confined. Now, if the people were equal, see, sexual intercourse should only take place between whom? People who are equal. Sexual intercourse is an agreement between equals. A prisoner of war is not equal to the person who is the prison master. That's just the way it works. It has nothing to do with feelings. It has to do with status. That's law. Of course, like everything else in codification, and I want to emphasize this while we're at it, so it won't be any controversy. You can either accept that premise or reject it. That's the beauty of the code. See, just because Neely Fuller says something is true doesn't necessarily mean that it is. Just because it's something in Neely Fuller's book that says it. But I say it's true, and I say it's true based on what? Neely Fuller and his whims or his wishes or wants? No. It's logical. Any court of justice that believes in justice, they would have to say, that's child abuse. You reduce a person to a childlike status and then have sexual intercourse with that person. You reduce a person to slavery, put a rope around their neck, and then have sexual intercourse with the person with the rope around their neck. That's abuse. Right. No, take that rope off and make that person equal to you. Now you can have sex. That's the way to do that. Don't tie the person up. Slavery. Racism.
All right, Wendell. Thank you for your call. Thank you. Don't be a stranger, my brother.
Okay. Let me keep hearing the show if I could, too. Thank you.
Wendell, I got so many calls. Can you do it next week, bro?
Oh.
I have so many.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much,
okay.
bro. Appreciate it. Okay, Leona, we're trying to get them in here, as many as we can here. Marie, I got you. Darnell and Gregory, I'm going to try to get you all in. Let's see here. Thank you again, Wendell. Leona, see if I can get you up here. Let's see. Okay, Leona, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. Two things. One, I want to ask you about the fear of death, and whether or not the fear of death has something to do with, people not making a will, or people not working to eliminate the white supremacy and produce justice. But before that, I too want to acknowledge October 6th as the day that your mother gave birth to you, the anniversary of that day, your mom and your father. And I remember hearing Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, saying one time that October 6th was also the day that her father came into physical existence, his born day. I remember you saying once that you don't really celebrate birthdays, you do born days, if I remember correctly. So happy anniversary on your born day, Mr. Fuller. Glad I'm in physical form at the same time you are and everybody else. But back to this death thing. Do you think the fear of death stops people from making wills? I think it might be blocking me a little bit, not facing up to that fact. And also the fear of death, what role does that play in stopping non-white people from eliminating the system of racism, white supremacy, and producing justice?
Well, the fear of death, it comes from the fear of the unknown. See, you know, if you're driving in the dark, I mean, you're going down the highway at 50 miles an hour and your lights go out, I mean, you fear what's going to happen. You know, you don't know exactly what's going to happen, but you begin to sense that that's a dangerous situation to be in, okay? I mean, there's traffic moving around you and whatnot, and you know, your engine is not acting up and whatnot, and you're slowing down, and people are blowing horns and whatnot. You think you're going to get hit. So that's natural. It's just because one thing is the unknown. We always fear the unknown. We fear going into a situation where we have never been in before, and we can't recognize anything or anybody. And so you know, fear serves a purpose. But you're supposed to be able to control your fears by what? Knowledge and understanding. Fear begins to leave when you have knowledge and understanding. Now, we know and understand that you are born. People celebrate when you're born, and they mourn your death. Now, they didn't mourn you anything about where you were before you were born. People don't ever think about that. There's an old Japanese saying, they say, you're dead before you're born. You are dead before you're born. So what's unusual about being dead after you're born and you stay here a while and then you are dead again? Because you're dead before you're born. But nobody talks about that. Nobody mourns that. Why? Because they don't have any knowledge of it, because you don't exist yet. It's only when you exist and you stay here a little while, even if it's just 15 minutes, the lady loses the baby, like it happens. It's happening right now somewhere in the world, all over again. I mean, maybe in the hundreds, maybe in the thousands. The day that the lady gives birth, and the doctor comes out and looks at everybody sadly, and everybody sighs, you know, and cries and whatnot, and looks in despair and helpless. They say, well, the baby was born. It lived, you know, for the last 15 minutes. We tried to keep it alive, but the baby died. The baby died the day that it was born. that happened to my father, quote unquote. He was born a twin, but his twin sister died the day that he was born. He survived, the twin sister died. That happens, okay? And people usually don't make, the people, the immediate family or whatnot, or particularly the mother, they feel terrible about that. But after the person stays here a number of years, you feel even worse. But using logic, you just simply say, people come into the world, and this is the way the code looks at it. You didn't have anything when you came here. You didn't do anything to get here. Like a white person told me once, said, "Fuller, you're always complaining about white people this and white people that, and nobody never did nothing for me. Black people always going around, somebody got to do something for them. Nobody never done nothing for me, and I'm white." And the guy said that, a guy I work with, okay, who I could talk to the subject about. Because you don't talk to white people about race unless they agree to talk about it, okay? So, and when he said that, though, I said, now you just said something that's not true. I didn't tell him he lied because, you don't ever say that to anybody. That's a part of the code. You just say that what was said was not true. And then I proceeded to tell him why it wasn't true. I said, I'm looking at you, sir. I'm looking at you. And you say nobody never did anything for you? I said, you had 9 months where you had a free ride. Most likely. Where people were out in the rain and getting on buses and whatnot, whoever was carrying you, and you were laid up there doing absolutely nothing but eating and sleeping for at least 9 months. So that was 9 months where somebody did something for you, or I wouldn't be looking at you now. And he had to laugh at that because he knew that was the truth. So you always go with the truth. You don't make up nothing. You stick with what's ironclad truth. And so it is true that people are going to pass away. That's why I emphasize, get out of there and get a will made right now about what you want done, about everything that you wish would happen. Put it down in writing, even if you have to hand scribe it right now, and hand it to somebody. Put your name and the date on it, and try to get your signature verified by somebody or something as soon as you possibly can. Don't leave everybody confused, because that's what happens when you leave here without a will. And confusion is always deadly. It's going to cause all kinds of problems for somebody else. Yes. People that you don't want to make problems for.
Okay,
death is going to come. Make a will right now. I mean, in the next 15 minutes if you can. Wherever you happen to be.
All righty. Thank you, Leona, for your call in. Don't be a stranger. Thank you so much. Okay, Darnell, we're going to get to you again. Go ahead, Darnell, with your question.
Yes, hello, Mr. Bobby. Hello, Mr. Fuller. My question is just how do we get from the current tragic arrangement we have, the process to get into the quality relationship? I'm not sure how they got it worded exactly in the book.
How do we do what?
How do we transform from the tragic arrangement to the quality relationship?
Through a code. Like I say, I keep emphasizing it in every program. Just 2 ways to go. See, it's not complicated. Everything that you do is supposed to have a constructive result. Everything that you say. Now, you may not be successful at it. I mean, you'll make a whole lot of mistakes.
You need to cut your radio down.
Hello.
Cut your radio down. It's interfering with Mr. Fuller. You need to cut that down. Darnell? Yeah, you need to cut that down.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Fuller, go ahead.
Everything that you do is going to have a constructive result or a non-constructive result. You always go by what the results are. That's every move that you make. Every word that you speak is going to have a constructive effect or a non-constructive effect. Always look at the constructive effect and or the non-constructive effect of every move that you make, everything that you do and say each and every day, and get rid of that non-constructive thing that you did. Don't do that no more. Why? Because it had a non-constructive result. You thought it was going to have a constructive result, but when you did it, it turned out to be non-constructive. So you just draw a line through that and say, well, that's over and done with. I made a mistake there. And the whole idea of being existent on this planet is to get rid of mistakes that you make. Don't keep making the same mistakes over and over again. Black people have been trained to follow what we call tradition. Sometimes we call it black tradition or our ancestors and all like that. Our ancestors made all kinds of mistakes. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in the shape that we're in.
All righty. Let's do this. Oh, yes, Mr. Fuller. Anthony Sloan, Jay Sloan, says, great breath day to you. He wanted me to mention that to you. So thank you, Anthony J. Let's go to Gregory. Gregory in the 201. Finally got to you, brother. What is your question for Mr. Fuller, and good morning?
Hey, how you doing? I was the one who originally asked Mr. Fuller his birthday years ago on the radio, and I was calling to wish him happy birthday, and people got that before me. But once again, I wanted to wish you that. And my question is, I just have something I wanted Mr. Fuller to readdress, and I was asking him about like the White House and the Supreme Court, and if that is like the head of white supremacy, because like if you look at most of the area's activity, it has to get approved through them to really be supreme anyway. So, and seeing, I was wondering what he thought about that.
What do I think about the White House?
Yeah,
and
like
the Supreme Court.
If you look at the White House and then the Supreme Court. So basically, like anything with economics have to be passed through that, education, the laws. So really, most of the 9 areas have to be approved through them, or enforced by them. So I was wondering what you thought about them being like the head of white supremacy.
Well, the code just says. See, I don't talk in terms of the Supreme Court, except within the context of the white supremacists. I don't talk in terms of the White House. You know, what is the White House? The White House is just a house that's white. I mean, it doesn't do anything. I'm not, So you're talking about people. So if you're talking about people, the code requires that I stay away from naming any person, because the business of countering white supremacy is not personal. It's business, as they say in the mafiosa. And the system of white supremacy is organized crime. So you always address the entire system. That's the codified way of doing it, the counter-racist codified way of doing it. You stay away from naming any individuals or implying that you're talking about individual persons, because that puts blocks in your way that are unnecessary to have to, or hurdles in your way that are unnecessary to have to jump over. So you just address the entire system as best you can when you talk about race, racism, and or counter-racism. And you say the system of white supremacy. You don't say Supreme Court. You don't say the White House. You don't say the royal family. You don't say any of that. You say the system of white supremacy. That's what you're trying to replace, the entire system of white supremacy. The system of white supremacy is always in capital letters. See, that's a government name. That's the government of the world. the system of white supremacy. And the whole purpose of every person who believes in justice should be you spend every breathing moment thinking about, planning on, trying to execute, replacing the system of white supremacy with, in capital letters, the system of justice, which means, what is justice? Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. That's the procedure, and that's the way you say it.
Last question. Mr. Fuller, what would your will, if you wrote a will for us, if you left us, what would your will be for us as a people?
Textbook for victims of white supremacy.
God bless you, Mr. Fuller. I absolutely love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gregory. Appreciate that. Let's see, Liberated Brother, I just got your Gmail, and because of the way that it is and our time is short, hopefully I'll get to it next week. All righty, Sylvia, thank you for listening. Let's go to Marie, and then we'll have Mr. Fuller talk about his book in the remaining moments. See, Marie, let me see if I can get you in here. Okay, Marie, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, and thanks for waiting.
Hi, great day, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Fuller. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my question is, can the system of white supremacy be dismantled financially? Would it be possible to dismantle white supremacy if we stop buying, supporting their corporations, like massive boycott? And if so, why haven't we done that yet? That's the second part. Thank you.
Oh, I don't know. People can try it. I don't think so. But that's why I wrote the textbook for victims of white supremacy. It's not just one thing. You have to erode the system of white supremacy in every area of activity. If you leave one area of activity unattended, then that's going to make a shambles out of everything else that you do. And it's 9 major areas that you have to cover. You have to have a prescription for every part of the disease of white supremacy, which covers 9 areas of activity. Economics, you just can't center on economics and not center also on education. Okay. Second area of activity, or the third, entertainment, and then labor, law, politics, religion. You got to address religion if you're going to deal with the system of white supremacy, because it's the most powerful religion on the planet here in 2020 is the religion of white supremacy. It's the most powerful religion. The white supremacists, they will go around and call themselves by the name of any religion, but they just have one, and that is the religion of white supremacy. That's the only religion that they really believe in. But they will say anything. They will tell you that they are Christian, they are Muslim, that they are Jew or Hindu or Confucianist or Buddhist. A white supremacist is a deceiver. They will say anything, but they believe in only one thing, the system of white supremacy. That's all they believe in, and that's what they practice. So you have to have a code that addresses everything that you do and all the words that you're given. Words like corporation, or words like, this organization or that organization, wherever you happen to be. And so how do you do this? You codify everything that you do on a day-to-day basis. It's all done day-to-day. What you do every day is either going to work for the system of white supremacy or against it. So you try to come up with a formula in the office where you work or the warehouse or wherever for countering racism where you are. That's an individual thing. That's how it's done. That's how a counter-racist code is enacted. You do the thing that will help produce justice. Because a lot of people say, well, how do you fight racism right up front? And they know that you're fighting racism. They'll come right back at you and whatnot. Just always go for justice, meaning guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Just do those two things, because that's the compensatory definition for justice. And you do that every day wherever you are. I don't care what the situation is, in any area of activity. Concentrate on guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Mm-hmm. And that's all of the code.
That's all.
And that will dismantle the system of white supremacy, right with them standing there looking at you do it.
All right. Marie, thank you for calling. Don't be a stranger to the show there.
I want to
thank
continue listening.
Okay. Mr. Fuller. Sorry about that, Marie. I was right in the presence of doing that. Mr. Fuller, we have about 3 minutes. This is the time where we are going to have you speak about your book. We only have about 3 minutes, so do your thing, Mr. Fuller.
Yes. Go to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And what will come up on the screen is a brief description of a basic textbook. The latest one is called the Revised Expanded Edition. And you'll see that has 2016 on it. Now, that's the basic book. And then there's an additional book called A Compensatory Counter-Racist Codified Word Guide. Now, that shows you how to use words on a day-to-day basis, how not to use them, what questions to ask, and how to discuss different words and what they mean in order to counter racism. It's a counter-racist codified word guide. And that's an additional volume to the basic textbook. And then there's a third volume you see there called the original textbook. Now, you don't necessarily have to get that, because that is covered by the Revised Expanded Edition, the 2016 edition. The original was a 1984 edition, but some people want it for some reason. That's why I started bringing it back and having it put to the press. Some people wanted it because they say they got more out of it. I never understood that, but, it is what it is. But you go to producejustice.com, producejustice.com, and all the information is there for getting the books, which include a lot of the things that I talk about every week. They're in the book. And the way that I say them are in the book. Like talking about the flag and all that. How to, that's in the book. So that's why I say that's my legacy.
And very quickly before we get off
producejustice.com.
Okay, before we get off the air, Mr. Fuller, could you repeat that universal pledge, for the flag?
Yes. And this is the compensatory universal flag. I made this up many years ago. I don't remember the year. It was so long ago. Because everybody was having the flag controversy. Whether or not you salute the flag, whether or not you take a knee and all this. Hey, you just stand there and say, hey, I got a universal pledge. It'll fit anywhere. I do at all times relate to the flag the exact same way that the flag relates to me.
All
now,
right.
when you say that, that's a universal pledge, and I don't think anybody will ever come over with one better, and if they do, I'll adopt it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, callers. Thank you, everybody. We'll try to do better next week. You've been listening to the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.